So some of my most well-received videos are my videos on TSM with some guides on how to use some of the more advanced functionality, some of the basic functionality, and if hopefully the trend continues for today's video, some of the functionality that maybe you just don't use, that you just don't realize is there, or you think it's not that important. And that particular aspect of TSM that we're going to talk about today is the ledger. Now, in my experience talking to people who like to do gold making in WoW, the TSM ledger is honestly so underutilized, and it is really helpful for making sure that you can make a lot of gold. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick look at the ledger and what it can do for you, and talk down from some of the key points in which it can help you with making some gold. So let's dive into it. So when you click onto your ledger tab in TSM, the first thing that's going to open up is the inventory subtab. Now, this subtab I find incredibly useful for a couple of different things. The first thing that I like to look at, that I always look at, is the total value of all items that is declared on the screen. So this is going to give you a rough estimation of where you stand in terms of the value of all of the items that you have in your possession in all of your characters on the realm. So this is going to look at their bags, what they've got in the bank, anything that they've got in the post box, things like that. It doesn't take into account the actual liquid gold you've got, it's just looking at the value of the items. Now, first thing I want to say before we go any further is that this figure is not incredibly accurate. You'll actually see in the footage here that somebody has manipulated market values on terrible items to make a random low level piece of food look like it's worth about 40 gold, if memory serves. And obviously that's going to mess with the numbers. However, it does give you a relatively accurate view of roughly how much things you have available to sell. This is really helpful so that you can know whether at this present moment in time you should be aiming more towards building up your stock of items that you're going to sell, or whether maybe you've got sufficient and you should be focusing more heavily on getting it to sell, or maybe converting it from one thing into another thing using professions to alter what markets that you're involved in. Now, personally, I don't really do an awful lot of farming, so this is really helpful to me because it lets me know when I need to invest to purchase some more items to get a bit more on the auction house. So I'm always looking for good value items, but if I find myself running really low on supply, I maybe will be a little bit more loose in terms of what I consider to be a good deal, just to get some more items in and start making some smaller amounts of gold and start building up what I've got in my inventory to get selling. Secondary to that, it does also give you a breakdown of how much of any given item you've got and what that value of that item is. This is incredibly helpful for just keeping a track of, let's say, items that you get quite a lot of. So like cloths is the one that I find it most helpful for. I often look at this, just simply see that I have a massive amount of, let's say, silk cloth available to me. I do find myself in that situation quite a lot, and I might think to myself, oh wow, I've got an awful lot of silk cloth here, it might be time to do some low level crafting and get it converted into something else that can sell, or maybe split half of it and do it into bolts so I can be selling both the cloth and the bolts to try and double up the target market for the people who might be purchasing these items. And it just gives you these options, this bit of information you know, so that then you can go and adapt what you're doing at the time to maybe improve your sales. Now, secondly, what I would like to talk about is going to be talking about our resale value tab. Now, our resale tab is going to let us know where we stand in terms of what items we're buying, how much we're spending on these items on average, and how much we're getting a return on these items. Now, this is unbelievably helpful if, like me, you get a lot of your inventory that you're selling via purchasing it on the auction house when it's been put on too cheap. So, as you can see on screen here, I am incredibly big on purchasing the dungeon sets and just reselling them off for massive profit margins. As you can see, almost every item I'm making a decent profit margin on. These are displayed per item, so I do indeed have some items on here that I'm making about 10 gold plus on each individual item that I am selling. and it just lets me keep a track of what items might be worth buying, like maybe my server has a particularly high abundance of a certain class, or maybe everyone's leveling that alt at the minute because it's great in the new expansion, or sorry, the new tier of raiding, and as a result maybe I might want to invest more heavily into those and maybe avoid some of the ones that are doing quite poorly. My numbers on here are a little bit skewed because of one pair of Gauntlets of Valor that I purchased for myself without really caring about the price when I hit max level, but maybe Gauntlets of Valor, when I look at them, aren't my best, whereas obviously higher up the list you can see that there are items that are a lot better profit value per item, and I might, if I find myself in the position where I have an option of buying one item over the other, lean towards one of those better selling items over the gauntlets. So that's just one way in which the resale can help you, but what it really does, as well as tracking what's going well, what I really want to point out is it can track things that maybe you've experimented on. So obviously I'm showing you the dungeon sets here, but it could just easily be on one of the many failed experiment groups that I have made, trying to see if I can find a little market for myself, purchasing items that are a bit more risky, and I'll be able to keep a track of what I'm purchasing those items for and what I'm selling them for, and just basically know if it's a group that's worth carrying on with. Maybe I did find myself that market that I can make my own and make some decent money on, or maybe it was a complete bust, and this is going to be the tab that's going to help keep a track of that information for you. And the final big power of the ledger that I want to talk about, not saying that these are the only things the ledger is helpful for, I'm sure if you have a little explore you'll find even more uses than what I'm discussing in this video, but just getting you started, the last thing that I want to talk about is failed auctions. Now, failed auctions is something that people just don't understand. If you are putting up auctions repeatedly that simply never sell, then you are basically throwing your money away. I've had green items in the past that I've thought, ooh, that looks good, thrown it in a group, let TSM try and sell it for me, and forgotten about it for months on end, and it just keeps going up and up and up, and I have done it myself where I've made that rookie error and I found that I've had an item that's been up maybe 30, 40 times for sale, never sold. At which point, obviously, the deposit costs on that item are potentially costing me massive amounts of money, and I would have been better off just vendoring it. So even if you are invested in an item like that, it'll give you that information on how many times you failed to sell that item, so that you can decide whether vendoring it's the way to go. Maybe you want to disenchant it, or maybe you can look at this item that you thought maybe it was good and try and figure out as to why maybe it's not good. For example, I see a lot of people posting green items that they think are great because it's a weapon for while people are leveling, it's a nice two-hander, it's of the tiger, so it's got agility and strength, which is best in slot for most melee classes while they're leveling, but they just don't realise that it's a polearm, and as a result, no one who's actually swinging their weapon really wants it because they don't want to level the weapon skill just for that weapon, or maybe they're even playing a class that can't wield a polearm because it's not actually that many that can, and as a result, maybe it's just not selling and it's costing them money, and they want to just get rid, cut the losses, and be done with it. That way you can actually find yourself not so much making extra gold, but certainly saving yourself some gold as well, which is tantamount to the same thing because obviously your gold is going to increase if your income is higher than expenditure. So as much as increasing income is great, cutting expenditure is also going to be just as good for seeing that improvement in your total gold margins. Now that is going to about wrap it up for this video, guys. I do hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider liking the video, and if you want to be kept up to date with any future videos like this that I bring out, more TSM guides or maybe some farming guides, or maybe I'll even branch out into some other videos as well, then please do consider subscribing to the channel. It does help out a great deal. On that end as well, if there's a particular video that you do want to see, if you let me know down in the comments below, I do read all of the comments. Sometimes due to real world commitments, it can take a while for me to get back to you. If you leave a good suggestion, I do always try and respond to everybody. But I do read them all, so don't think that I haven't seen your suggestion, and if enough people do want to see it, I will get it made for you, okay? But for today, guys, that's going to about do it, and I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next one. Later.